Rob, thank you very much for joining us here for Positive Ageing Week 2020.
My name is Rob Walpole and I'm the Services Manager for Alone. I predominantly work in the counties Waterford, Wexford, Kilkenny, Carlow and South Tipperary. Our service is nationwide, so we have support coordination in every county in Ireland. But for the purposes of this, we'll just concentrate on the 5 counties we mentioned. What Alone do is allow older people to age with dignity in their own home. Now, we do this through a number of different means, predominantly being support coordination, where a qualified and trained support coordinator will meet with an older person to assess their needs with their permission and to find out how we can help them, again, age positively and with dignity in their own home. We use volunteers. It's a volunteer-led organisation. All our volunteers are Garda vetted and fully trained before they enter an old person's home or make contact with an older person. We help with, I suppose, from a health point of view, with hospital discharges. So we work in connection with the hospital discharge teams in various hospitals throughout the region. So if an older person is waiting to come home and waiting to be discharged, we will work with the hospital team to ensure that their home is fit for purpose. So when they return, they can again live positively and with dignity in their own home. We also help then with a variety of other services, liaising with county councils for home improvement grants, liaising with financial institutions around pensions, around pension collections if the older person needs that. We also have, we look at housing. So again, for grants, for work to be done on houses, all of that sort of thing. We also have a section in Alone that is working with county councils throughout the Ireland on a programme we call Housing with Supports. So again, where older people live in a house that is adaptable to their needs going forward. So if they need adaptations in the future, it's easier to have those adaptations rather than knocking down solid walls and all of that. So that's another part of our service as well. We also connect older people in with events. So, for instance, here in our counties, we organise tea dances, we organise Christmas events, and we organise transport to these events. And again, this is all in conjunction with the volunteers that visit the older people as well. We also, I suppose the companionship and the friendship part of it is really a key part of what Alone does. So we take time in assessing a volunteer, make sure it's the right volunteer to visit an older person. We are looking for this to be a long-term relationship. So again, the support coordinator, who is key in all of this, will interview both the older person and the volunteer, and to make sure the match lasts. And that's what we're all about. I suppose some of the challenges we're facing at the moment is obviously with COVID. An awful lot of our face-to-face services have had to be, I suppose, put on the back burner for the minute. But we have just launched a new telephone service from our hub in Kilkenny, which services the 5 counties again, South Tip, Wexford, Waterford, Kilkenny and Carlow. This service is virtual, and instead of a volunteer actually calling to an older person's house, a volunteer now actually phones the older person. So you're still creating that link. We can set up the calls to be once a week, twice a week, or even 5 days a week, depending on the older person's needs. What happens with those calls is, so if a volunteer is phoning an older person and the older person identifies something that they need, their comments are passed back again to a support coordinator who can link in with the local PHN. She can link in with the local doctor or other services depending on the needs of the older person. And this is all picked up on phone calls. Yeah. And it's all virtual and it's all done from the volunteers' home. They're all using their own mobile phones and laptops to connect in with our CRM service. So all of this is logged on the Alone service, even though they're at home and making the calls from their own home.
Rob, you've given a lot of information there, and one thing that strikes me is the changes you've had to make with the current restrictions. So, for example, when a person is being discharged from hospital, are you still in a position to help, and how would you do that?
Again, we can, because we're still linking in with the teams, which is, the discharge teams, which is a phone call. We can arrange them with relatives or someone else to meet us in the home, so we can still get a view of the home. We can also use photographs taken on mobile phones to know what we're dealing with, even before even visiting the home. So that can still work. And again, it depends on the needs of the older person and what is required. But yes, it's still happening, and we're still linking back in with all the usual services that we would have done. There's a couple of ways. An awful lot of people refer themselves. You can self-refer to our service, and they're either referred by GPs, the public health nurse, the discharge teams, councils, family, friends. And again, it's all down to the permission of the older person. As long as the older person gives their permission for us to contact them, it's not a problem. The easiest way to make a referral in these times, now we will accept them by post and everything like we normally do in referral forms, is just alone.ie. And once you go onto the web, it's a very simple way to use it for volunteer queries. It's alone.ie if you want to volunteer as well. If you want to refer an older person, and you literally, it's a 1.5 page form, and then we do the rest. Then that goes to a support coordinator, and they will make contact then with the older person.
What are some of the challenges that you as an organisation and the volunteers are experiencing at the moment?
It's always been a challenge with volunteers, because say for instance some of our services like the telephone service, and if you want to be a volunteer with the telephone service currently, an awful lot of older people would like a call between 9 and maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we work around the older person. So yes, we have a load of volunteers who may want to make calls at 9 o'clock in the evening. Unfortunately, a lot of older people don't want to call at 9 o'clock in the evening, or on Saturday or on Sunday. It's very much not even 9 to 5 Monday to Friday is when they actually want their calls. So it's fitting in with the volunteers' expectations and the expectations of the older person. But there's an awful lot of other volunteer positions we'd have as well. So we just encourage people to use that alone.ie, and there's a section on it to how to volunteer, and you literally put in name, address, and then we'll be in touch with you then.
You mentioned the fact of that since COVID that people now most of the contact is done through phone, and I'm thinking of the fact that it's an older generation.
Yes.
What are the challenges been for the older people to learn to use technology, and how maybe have you helped them overcome that as well? Yes.
And again, that's another part of the Alone service anyway, which is our tech support department. And they actually go out and visit older people and help them, get connected in with services like broadband, all of those other security in the home, all of that kind of thing as well. But they've also talked people through how to use smartphones over the phone, believe it or not. And then when if there's an issue and that can't be done, they've gone out to visit people to show them. But again, this is how we use our volunteers. You know what I mean? Volunteers have gone to an older person's home and actually showed them how to connect in with technology as well. So that's the whole beauty of all of this, is we're using people, communities, volunteers, all to help each other out. And it's just, it's a brilliant way to go. And especially it makes people feel safe in their own home. If you needed sensors put into your home to help with security, or from a family point of view, if you wanted to know that your elderly relatives are safe in their own home, you can monitor these sensors on your own mobile phone to know that the older person is not just sitting in one part of the house, is actually moving around the house, or that the heating is on when it gets cold. So all of these sensors can be put in as well. And it gives people peace of mind, and again, to age with dignity in your own home.
Rob, you gave quite a description there of the volunteers. I was just wondering, could you give a little bit more about the backgrounds of some of the volunteers so that people would have an idea of who could come forward to help out?
And just to say that we don't ask our volunteers to clean houses or declutter. The support coordinator would be making calls and linking in with other agencies to do that. But the volunteers, some of our volunteers are accountants and can help their older person with, access to wills, make sure they're getting the proper pension, make sure the proper entitlements, from the government and all the rest of it. So that's really, really important. And that's why, as you say, the skill base of the volunteers is brilliant. And it's great to have different skill sets in volunteers because, again, they can help the older people, they can help the organisation, they feed back to other volunteers as well. And it's really important. I suppose one of the other key factors, I suppose, is the whole support coordination, and maybe just to touch on that a little bit more again. As I said, the support coordinators are highly trained and skilled people who work for Alone, and they link the older person with all the services. What happens is that they would go out and do an assessment. Again, all this is with the older person's permission. And do, to find out what the older person needs. Now, it might take more than one assessment. They'll concentrate on the immediate needs of the older person, link in with the county council, GPs, public health nurses, whoever it is that the older person needs, but follow it through. They don't just leave them there. They create this link with the older person. And once that is finished and put to bed, well, then there may be another issue that the older person wants help with as well. So it's linking in when the older person wants it.
Okay. So they can access the service throughout their lifetime, really and truly. They don't necessarily need it every day.
No.
It's at different times.
Yeah. And again, it's just to know that there's someone there to help.
Yeah.
And an awful lot of our, especially now with COVID and the phone service that we provide, like our national helpline as well, that people are phoning in for a chat, and that's what it's all about as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes they just need to bounce something off someone, and again, we're there for that.
Would you ever find that an older person needs to bounce something off you first?
Yes.
To then be able to go and speak to their family about something?
They can do.
Can they?
Sometimes they, and again, because it's the older person we're dealing with. They're a person in their own right. They have capacity. They are. We ask their permission to deal with them. So we don't do anything unless the older person says, yes, this is what I'd like you to do, or this is the help I would like, this is the support I would like. But again, we're bound by the older person.
And would you mind just giving your contact details there for everybody, please?
If you'd like to contact Alone, the best way is alone.ie.
Thank you very much.